We continue the PJ Washington conversation. Did he get duped in this contract? Then we go to the Sicko Satchel. That's all today on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
We're Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. That's Doug Branson. You can catch his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on the radio, sports radio, 92.7 WFNZ, every weekday on Wes and Walker from 12 to 3 p.m. So we're continuing the PJ Washington conversation. I don't know if this is going to lead to an argument that you have with yourself in order for you to win. And then I argue kind of arguments different. Yeah, right. Like you're very good at it. We've talked about it. We just mentioned it yesterday, but you did the whole, I don't know what you're talking about. This is not what I do. But fair enough. We'll continue the PJ convo. Doug, I know you still had some takes from yesterday. I didn't allow you to get to them. We had top 35 lists to get to yesterday, and I had a couple of PJ thoughts, and you said, all right, well, you stole all my time. This take is so powerful. It's so supernova. I wanted to save it for the next episode. So I saw on the rundown, you got a couple things you want to discuss with PJ. It starts with, did he get duped? Seems like you have a little problem with that phrasing.
Well, I'm interested in your thoughts because you and I really haven't. Sometimes we will talk about things pre-show and sometimes we won't. And so I'm genuinely interested in your thoughts on this because I do see comments, whether they be on social media or on our YouTube chat after this PJ contract, that people's perception of it is it's a team-friendly contract. And because it's descending over time, because it's super tradable, because there are incentive clauses that may prevent him from realizing the full extent of the contract because there are no player options in the contract. Really, all of the control lands with the Hornets at this point. And we all had some indication from rumors. How true were those? We don't know. But we had some indication that PJ Washington wanted significantly more than $60 million. And so people have this perception that PJ just got played. Like the Hornets came in there and swindled him out of money in his contract. And I just don't know about that because if there were a market, if there were a significant market or really any market for PJ Washington that had materialized through this restricted free agency process, and he ended up signing the deal that he signed with the Charlotte Hornets, then I would be more on board with, yeah, wow. I mean, really, the Hornets got him on this one. But everyone was clear on the contract terms, and I think everyone was clear on the reality of the situation. It was more for PJ just coming to terms with that reality and then signing the deal that he ultimately signed. But I don't 100%. Think he got duped by the team.
100%. Because duped or swindled means that he didn't know what he was doing, that you took advantage of his ignorance. And that's not the case. PJ Washington knew. You just wanted to play this out as long as you possibly could to explore every avenue. And once there wasn't another contract that would have been long-term, that would have given you this kind of guaranteed money, which was 48 to be exact. And then we'll see if he hits the incentive. So not 48 guaranteed because the incentives are baked in there. So what are we talking about? At 46 guaranteed. Yeah,
it's a lot of money. I mean, it's
$1.5 million.
Yeah.
Is what we're talking about. So $1.5 million is what's baked into the incentives every single season, $500,000 each year. But PJ and his agent, they knew what was going on. They know the idea. So when you're talking about getting duped, it means that he didn't know, oh, well, I'll just sign it, la-di-da. I think 3 years is very intentional, probably on the PJ part. If you're the Charlotte Hornets and this contract, the money was always going to be true, and that was going to be true for a fourth year added, then I think the Charlotte Hornets would have done that 100%. I think the Hornets would love control a one more year. Sometimes you want it off the books as fast as possible. Sometimes you want to play around the books as long as possible. At this figure, especially in declining fashion, then you're going to want another year on that. So when we talk about 3 years, I think the 3 part is probably pushed by the PJ Washington party so they can get out as soon as 28 years old. Or remember, he's turning a year older every single negotiation period, every offseason around that time. You're going to have a fresh year of whatever he turns. So, yeah, to say that he was duped or swindled means that he nor his agent knew what they were signing while everything else was out there. And you're right. At this point, because the Charlotte Hornets didn't win, much of the same reason that LaMelo gets ranked 84th at this point, PJ wasn't as valued. And he signs a $48 million contract with incentives, unlikely incentives included.
And PJ Washington, unfortunately, landed in this sort of murky middle of the free agency rookie process because, there are a number of rookies who are so good, perform so well, are just undeniably talented, like LaMelo Ball, that when the rookie extension comes up, you back up the Brinks truck. Mm-hmm. And then there are a number of rookies, and this has been the more familiar process that the Hornets as an organization has gone through, that don't play well enough to even consider extending at all. And then there's this middle group, which I think PJ finds himself in, where it's like, well, he's not even close to a max player, so he's a mid-level player, or is he above the mid-level? How far above the mid-level? And then this other factor, which is the Hornets haven't had any playoff success. And so by virtue of that, PJ has not been a part of that playoff success or even getting to the playoffs. And so then not only are you in the murky middle, you now are in the murky middle with nothing to generate, I think, interest from teams who are legitimate playoff teams like a Dallas, or a Cleveland, enough interest where they would throw you a contract. And so, he was just, PJ found himself in an unfortunate situation. And I think, look, the Hornets probably wanted to pay less than $16 million. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think they probably wanted to have it somewhere closer to what Grant Williams is making. Grant Williams has playoff experience, and he's making less money now for the Dallas Mavericks. Probably wanted it closer to just right above that mid-level. And so there was a negotiation. They came to what I think is in the middle of the number that each party wanted. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just, I just don't think we need to start it off like that. Like, all right, PJ's here for 3 years. I think they both figured out a way to make a deal happen. Let's just celebrate that and not turn it into, well, this player, got swindled.
Yeah. So when you're insulting, maybe people who say that are meaning to say that insult both parties, but you do insult both parties, right? Like by saying PJ Washington was swindled, it's like, oh, poor PJ, he doesn't know what he's doing. His representatives, they don't know what they're doing. And the Charlotte Hornets do. They haven't proven a ton. Like this is like this move here, it worked out. Here was my biggest problem the entire time. I think a lot of times when we discuss the people part of the business, Nada referenced it a million times, right? When we discuss it, I think it's overblown for a lot of teams. I think the Charlotte Hornets have a pretty big rep problem right now. Whether you agree with everybody that has that kind of reputation or that perception, that doesn't matter. The perception is the reality in this case. And perception is that they don't deal with these sorts of things very well. And so if you are playing close to the line here with PJ after Miles Bridges, which more understandably so, the Miles qualifying offer, I applaud the Hornets for that, not giving Miles whatever he wanted. That's different. At the same time, Miles does sign the qualifying offer. And then with PJ, who does do everything you ask him, who is somebody that didn't get in trouble, who did play more games than anybody and available for more. And it just seems like he did everything as right as possible and said, if you made every bucket, for sure, you get the idea. And then you still want to play this hardball with them. That was my problem with the Charlotte Hornets. But at the end of the day, you get them to a contract that's 3 years, 48, that is pretty damn team friendly to me. And so they escape it. But that was my biggest worry this entire process. This
process dragged on for a very long time, longer than really any of these kinds of processes have dragged on for a player in Charlotte Hornets history. It was unprecedented how long this process took. That's a testament to how both sides were really battling hard in this negotiation but they came to terms. That was the key. Like, PJ didn't sign the qualifying offer. They didn't work a sign and trade, which is honestly where I thought all of this was heading. I did not think they were going to get a deal done. It was important for the Hornets to get a deal done because you're right. An organization has to walk a fine line between we are going to pay people when they work hard for us and are talented, and we're going to reward that because we want that reputation. We want players to come to this organization and understand if you play well here, we pay you. But you also don't want to negotiate against yourself. You can't do that. And that's a recipe for destroying your ability to go out and actually acquire talented players later on because you're going to fill up your books. So they didn't negotiate against themselves. PJ stuck to, his stance of wanting more, significantly more than that mid-level, and both sides came to an agreement. And I don't know why we can't land on that. Maybe we can. Maybe more. I'm not giving enough credit to the entire fan base. I'm sure a majority of people are out there. They understand this. I would just say to those that think PJ got played, I just don't buy that.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk a little more PJ coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
I have a surprise question for Doug. He doesn't even know what's coming up next. So you're teased. Doug is teased. Everybody's teased. Stay tuned to the question that I have for Doug Branson in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $2,000 in bonus bets back guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and even more than that. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you will not want to miss. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. More PJ stuff coming up next. Doug, it was funny you brought up Grant Williams because you were saying how the Hornets probably wanted to pay PJ Washington Grant Williams money. But what's funny is they wanted to pay Grant Williams like maybe Kelly Oubre money, what he's going to get. So the problem is it's just a sliding scale. Everything moves down. As soon as you went a penny above the mid-level exception, Hornets are like, all right, Dallas, you got him. We're not dealing in cap space, which is fine. It's just, this is the other domino that needed to fall. It's the PJ thing. You thought maybe they would bring in both, but nope. Grant gets a little more than the MLE. Hornets are out.
Well, and they also, in this same free agency period, did not bother to call Dennis Smith Jr., who was the driving force behind any kind of defensive presence that they had last year in the backcourt. They just didn't make him a priority. They maybe offered him more money, but they didn't call him first. And Brooklyn swooped in there and snagged them. And who did they replace him with? Frank Ntilikina. Big question mark there. So that's part of the problem with this framing too, right? Is that I think it gives too much credit to a front office that hasn't necessarily earned that credit. So
right. And they've been, the Terry Rozier contract, the Gordon Hayward contract, that's big money stuff. It does feel like this is the first one, Doug. And I've talked about this as soon as we discussed this specific deal. It's the best one I've ever felt about with this kind of money. Now, LaMelo is easy, right? That I don't even count that. It's the one where it was a little up in the air negotiation. We knew what LaMelo was going to get. If it would have been anything other than here is the max, take my money and be here 5 years contractually, then we would have had a problem. But we expected it. With this, I thought this negotiation was the most dicey. I didn't know what was going to happen. We thought we might get this with Miles last year, but we didn't because he turned himself in to be arrested for felony domestic violence. So now PJ Washington, this is the first true, pretty big contract negotiation that we've had with the Mitch Kupchak era, which is interesting to me. I didn't even thought about it before, but you're talking about who else? I mean, Cody Martin comes aboard, $8 million a year, not at this PJ level.
That was easy.
At least with a draft pick, right? Like Terry Rozier getting $20 million and Gordon Hayward, those are big contracts. I guess my point with PJ is a guy that you drafted that
the
also
murky
you have
middle.
to
You are describing the murky middle, which is what where do we? It's not as easy to value that.
Yeah, and so I guess I was talking about the guys that Mitch Kupchak drafted, but you get the idea. My next question is, before we get to some other stuff here, if PJ now, he is on a second contract with this team, and he's going to be a role player. So in this era, I wonder if PJ is going to become, I wonder if people are going to join my side, Doug. I wonder if people are going to become or going to come to love PJ more because he's going to be the dude that has longevity, right? So 4 years, plays his contract out. Do they finally reach the promised land by his second or third year to the point where he's a decent part of it? They bring him aboard again. And then now you have PJ apart as a rotation player where a team is actually getting to the playoffs. And then you look at the basketball reference page and, oh, PJ played 9 seasons, 10 seasons with this team. You've passed the first, you've jumped the first hurdle to get to that point, which is going to be interesting. But
yeah,
still
where does he end up? Where does he end up on the top 40? I think that's what you're really getting to.
Question.
Like when we do these lists again 5 years from now, when the Hornets are celebrating their 40th anniversary, those seasons, are going to matter. Longevity matters when you don't have a ton of history in your franchise. But you bring up a good point, which is he's on the second contract. But the beauty of the contract in that it is 3 years, and as you, I think, correctly pointed out, was probably something that was more on the PJ side, because I don't think there's any strong loyalty between PJ in this front office, PJ in this city, PJ in this team. And you don't need to have, I'm not leveling that as a criticism. You don't need to have loyalty in this business because neither side really has true loyalty. You could be traded at any moment. People can ask out. There is no true loyalty in this business, but I don't think there's any. I think PJ is a little bit of a mercenary at this point, and that's good for the Hornets in a sense because PJ in year one of this second contract should be playing like he's auditioning for the next contract, whether that be with the Charlotte Hornets or whether that be for a team he's traded to in the future or whether that be a team that he's going to explore when he becomes an unrestricted free agent 3 seasons from now. But this second contract is not going to be I can just sit back now, I got my money. No, PJ is going to be playing for the third contract, and I think that's going to ultimately benefit the Hornets. Here's an interesting thing that I noted from the press release that was sent out. It kind of goes to, I think, the loyalty piece here, or the love between these two parties after this tough, long negotiation. Yeah. Mitch Kupchak, his name comes up in the press release, but there is no quote. There is no quote, PJ, we wanted to get this deal done because PJ is an important part of this organization, and we're excited about what he's going to bring. Like, none of that. There's just there's zero quote. And so I think when you take that into the fullness of this conversation, the length of it, how difficult it was to come to terms, from that I take all right, they got a deal done, but they are not exactly, in the honeymoon suite right now. No, they're fighting. No video of the cute video that they did with LaMelo and Mitch. Like Mitch is like, all right, now you got to be MVP, and LaMelo's like, okay, Dad. Like there's no video like that. It's just like, yeah, we signed PJ.
Something bad happened at the wedding, and they've scheduled the honeymoon. Like it's there. It's just, man, they're fighting now, and no one's having fun on this trip, and that's indicative of what you just talked about. Yeah, and I remember asking Mitch Kupchak, so it would be, I guess, 2 off seasons ago, right? If this offseason is 2 off seasons ago, where we didn't know what was going to happen with Miles, and we didn't know what was going to happen with PJ. So we didn't even know what was going to happen with Mitch. Remember, we thought, okay, Jake Fisher is out here talking about Mitch might go into a different role. So we got clarity on that from Mitch Kupchak in that media availability. He was saying that they were going to sign Miles. Miles was going to get $30 million, and he was going to get it from the Charlotte Hornets. That was going to happen. Mitch told you that, okay? Real transparent. What he was not very transparent on was the PJ Washington stuff. In fact, maybe you think he was being clear in that, yeah, guys, it's going to be a bumpy road. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe he was being clear when he said that. But I asked him about PJ, and that was the quintessential GM answer. He was giving us the real general manager answer there. With everything else, oh, yeah, we signed a multi-year deal. They're going to have me back. Oh, yeah, Miles. All right, I'll say it. We're going to pay Miles. We're going to pay him.
We love him.
With PJ, that didn't happen. So, yeah, it was dicey, and it went through and through all the way to the end of August. All right, any more PJ takes before we move on to the Sicko Satchel, Doug?
We don't have any all-stars on this team.
I just had to get that. We were talking about Mitch. I got to get the ultimate Mitch quote in there. The only other thing that I thought about through this process is that the deal is done. It's a good deal, I think, for both parties, but I admit it is a team-friendly deal. It is good for the Charlotte Hornets. And it got me to thinking, what do you think about this? Mitch Kupchak, to me, as a general manager, is a lot like P.J. Washington. There may be some love lost there, but I think they are very similar if you look at their records. That P.J. Washington, as his usage declines, he plays a lot better, shoots the three better, offensively, just a significantly more efficient player the less he does. I think it's part of the reason why he didn't get a big bag of money is because when you look a little deeper into the statistics, if you go a little bit past set career highs in last season, you go, well, wait a minute. As he gets the ball more, less good stuff happens and more bad stuff happens. And Mitch is a lot like that as a general manager. He doesn't do a lot, but when he does it, we're not totally unhappy with the results.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, all right.
You like that?
Yeah,
you like that comparison?
Okay.
Now, I would say, I would like a front office, a future front office, to maybe be able to do a little bit more and be more efficient. I think that would ultimately benefit the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, you almost want a volume shooter at this point. You want more action, even if you do have a couple clanks in there. You do want some more action.
Totally. Yeah, I'm okay with clanks if they come with a little bit more volume because you give yourself more opportunity and you give yourself a little bit of hope. Every move, every contract that's signed, every player that you bring in is an opportunity to completely change the calculus on a season. And so, yes, I think volume does matter when it comes to these things. And this is the last thing I'll say. I don't really care that there's love lost. I don't really care that there's not a Mitch Kupchak quote in the press release. And I don't care that if PJ is like, all right, look, I'm here to do business. I don't care about Charlotte. I don't care about any of that because I think we overrate the whole, he loves to be in Charlotte. Like, who cares? Can he play basketball or not? And is he going to be playing basketball for Charlotte? That's all I care about as a fan. I just want to see this team win. And if PJ can help them win, then great. And also, this front office might not even be here a year from now. So who cares if PJ and Mitch don't like each other? Who cares?
100%. 100. And what I do care about is PJ, and I'm sure PJ cares about is his relationship with the coach. And that seems good because now you're talking about incentives literally being a part of the contract. So you are talking about actual money being lost if you don't play well enough to earn more minutes and play 74 games this season. Now, I can't imagine PJ would ever, based off of merit of play, get a DNP CD. I can't see that, but I could see him not reach the minutes threshold, possibly with Miles, with Brandon, that's a real possibility. I don't see the actual, if he's healthy, right? If we say no injuries, then he'll get his game mark. But minutes, that would be a little interesting. And so that's why he does have $500,000 to play for. So we'll see the relationship.
Not this
with
season,
Clifford,
but certainly next season. Opportunity will be there if they don't. Gordon's gone. They may not extend Miles. Miles may go somewhere else. He'll be an unrestricted free agent. So the opportunity is there. Maybe not this season to make that $500K, but he could bank it in the following two seasons.
Trade market's interesting too. You're right. Good point. All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
We go to the Sicko Satchel. People asking questions on YouTube, making comments in the comments section, asking us questions on Twitter, all that good stuff. We go to the Sicko Satchel coming up next. All right, Doug, we got a lot of comments in the LaMelo Ball episode that we did. Some PJ Washington comments too, but you are the keeper of the Sicko Satchel. What kind of comments did you want to go to?
We've got one from, I'm going to mess this up, so I apologize in advance. Sedu Diallo, 4140, saying, LaMelo year incoming. Got to remind these short-minded people how great he is. PJ contract is nice, no matter how you see it. And that was the general vibe from a lot of these comments was that, look, this 84th ranking, if LaMelo sees it, he should see it. He should be inspired by it. And I don't know how you feel about this, Walker, but I agree. I don't get upset with the 84th ranking. I love it. If the Charlotte Hornets had made the playoffs last season, if everything would have gone right instead of everything going wrong, and then someone comes along and says, well, actually, even though they made the playoffs and, had a little bit of success, LaMelo's 84th, then I would have a problem with it. But I want everyone to hate on the Hornets. I want everyone to basically underrate all of our players, and especially the ones that will have the most impact on winning, like LaMelo. And I want them to see it, and I want them to feel bad about it in a way that inspires them to say, all right, I'm going to show these people what I can do. I hope they feel that, because if they don't, if LaMelo doesn't feel that at all, then... I mean, what did the organization just pay for if somebody's not going to be inspired by that?
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be the lowest ranked max young player out there. I don't know if there are bad contracts I'm not thinking of that have guys lower, but yeah, the max player that's a younger player, he's got to be the lowest on that list, and that has to hurt. So, or maybe not hurt. You get the idea. That has to.
Well, here's what you want. I think it's a weird thing. This is actually what you want. You want a player to get on the podium and you ask the question, hey, did you see the ranking? What do you think? You want them to lie to you. You want them to say, I don't pay attention to that stuff. I'm just singularly focused on being the best basketball. You want them to just bald-faced. Is it bold-faced or bald-faced? We've
talked about this before. It's bald-faced. That's what the meaning is supposed to be. Yeah.
They bold-faced lie to you.
There you go. Nailed it.
And then secretly, they are the Kevin Durant burner account. They are what is the ref that just was forced to retire because he was on Twitter, like defending refereeing, Eric something.
Forget, yes, but right.
You want them to just secretly burn inside about every little slight. But when they get on the podium, you want them to lie and say, no, I'm focused on this next season.
Right. You want it to be, LaMelo, did you see your rankings? Said, no, I don't care. I never pay attention. I don't care about being ranked 84th. I didn't mention 84. Huh? You got me. I do care. That's what I want. I want that interaction on the podium. All right,
I mean, it would be nice if they were honest, right? It would be funny. It would make for a great quotes, but at the same time, that's me selfishly wanting to laugh. I just don't think guys are honest in that way. They don't want to admit that they read this kind of stuff. You want them, you do. I want people to continue to discount the Hornets because honestly, like at this point, that's the only way the Hornets are going to earn any respect. Is to surprise folks, is for everyone to think that they're going to win 30 games and then they win 45. That's the only way this thing's going to happen. Until there's a new front office that is legitimately engaged in bringing actual talent to this organization and using veteran talent and using every tool in their tool belt to accomplish that, until that happens, then it is going to have to be, as Steve Clifford reminds us, it's going to have to be 2 or 3 guys winning awards that they were not in contention for last season and just surprising everyone. Mm-hmm. That's how they're going to win enough games to get to the playoffs.
All right, next comment. What else you got? Question, comment, concern? What else do you have in the Sicko Satchel?
Casual Hindu says, Halliburton at 17 and Melo at 84 pisses me off so much. Let's see. Static Defender Akami 780 says, people acting as if the Ball and Bridges combo wasn't just 2 years ago. LaMelo is the opposite of a ball hog. And even if he is a ball hog, again, if he hogs it on a possession when, there aren't too many shooters on the floor, it's kind of what you want. He's a good offensive player.
Right. So, all right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that generally these comments are in agreement with like the fact that 84 significantly lower. There were guys that were higher that had no business being higher. There is this one from I Don't Text 9783 says it's the 4 ankle injuries last year. He needs a solid season to get respect. And that goes to something we talked about yesterday too, which is, look, you can't deny that he didn't play a lot of games last season. The stats were there. Had he been healthy, he could have, I think, generated enough at least for a second All-Star appearance, but maybe even an All-NBA appearance. But he didn't do it. And so we have to, this is where I think some of the super fans of LaMelo do get a little tripped up, which is like, I think they get ahead of themselves a little bit. They see the talent, they see the highlights, they see the incredible passes, the physics breaking that he does on a regular basis and say, Well, yeah, the guy's there. Why, he's an all-NBA already. And it's like, no, you still have to accomplish it. You still have to get the awards.
Well, and Matt, who created this list, you mentioned the injuries being an excuse there, or being one of the reasons as to why. Well, that was the only thing really included in the write-up. It was that even though the injuries were a problem, and then you didn't really get a ton of evidence. That's not to say that Matt should have a one-page write-up on every single one of his 100 players. That's going to be a lot. But in that write-up, if you go by that, then it's just, the injuries, which are kind of an excuse. And then I think Matt would talk a little bit more about, quote tweeting some of the other reasons as to why LaMelo might be ranked low. And so there were a lot of people coming towards Matt. And so okay, yeah, too many comments to read all the reasoning as to why LaMelo is that low. But we did have that one little paragraph.
And people, I think, see the sizzle. And LaMelo has the sizzle. And I think they look at the sizzle and then they look at the record of the team, and they don't like that particular matchup. And I think what you and I would argue is that that's not singularly LaMelo's fault. And yet you and I think, have been very fair about the deficiencies in LaMelo's game that he's, I think, continuing to work on. Like now that he has a second contract, I really want to see a more mature. He's only 22, but I want to see a more mature LaMelo Ball when it comes to he makes a turnover on offense, a bad turnover, and gets upset about it, and then immediately fouls and picks up his fourth foul. Like we have to see that be eliminated from his game. There are places where there are legitimate arguments that were, I think, probably maybe if they had been made in Matt's article. I think people still would have been upset, but maybe they would have been a little less upset.
Sure.
There are legitimate places where you go, I don't think he's 84th, but there are legitimate places in his game where you go, okay, if he gets rid of that and he stays healthy and the Hornets, management can throw him a bone and do some things to bring in some talent, then, he's got he'll have all the tools necessary to get into the top 25, top 10, in a couple of years in the league.
That's Doug Branson. Go check out more of his thoughts on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. And thanks for making us your first listen. Feel free to catch us anywhere you get your podcast, including Game to Game NBA, where you make that your second listen. Every moment, every top performance, every result during the regular season. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the league with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. So we have a few more weeks to go of 3-episode weeks. So I think that's correct, right? So we have 3 more weeks where we'll give you 3 episodes per week. And then as soon as we get to September 18th, that's when we're going to go every single day. So
5
September
days.
Yep.
Get ready for a lot of, listen, I will promise you this. We will finish the top 35 list.
That's going to happen.
We will finish who wore it best.
I'm not so sure about.
Well, we're going to get to some of these things because we got to get them off our plate, because this is a super important season. I'm knock on wood, but it can't possibly go the way that it did last season. So it's going to be a very important season. Jobs are on the line. Mitch Kupchak's job is on the line. Steve Clifford's job is on the line. We got 2 owners now instead of 1. It's going to be a crazy season. So we got to get this stuff off of our plate so we can focus in on, previewing this season.
Yeah. And maybe if we just talk about this, even during the season, maybe we just bring it out during losses we don't want to talk about. Like, all right, who wore it best? Right smack dab in the middle of January. I want to talk about who wore it best after a 30-point loss. That's what we should do. All right. So we'll figure that out. September 18th. That's when we're going to be on 5 days a week once again. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Not tomorrow, next week.